According to the U.S. funeral industry, the U.S. funeral market is currently estimated to be worth around $2 billion annually, with 2.4 million funerals taking place each year, and at least 50% of these funerals contain an embalmed body. Embalming is an important process of American culture. Three things I want to share with you today about embalming is first, what it really consists of, the requirements or skills it takes to be an embalmer, and embalming during crazy times like COVID. So the first thing I want to share with you is what embalming really consists of, the whole process in itself. So the first thing you do when it comes to embalming is obviously washing and disinfecting the body. You never know what really happened during the death, so you need to make sure it's clean and you have a clean slate in order to perform the embalming process itself. So after you disinfect the body, you clean and groom the body, such as cutting the nails, doing the hair. Sometimes they put cotton in your nose and your mouth to make sure it's, the right shape. In some cases, they even sew your eyelids and your mouth together. It just kind of depends on the body and the severity of what happened to it. The embalming process itself is very interesting. According to funeral planners at Everplan, for cavity embalming, a small incision is made near the belly button and a sharp surgical instrument is used for drainage called a trocar. Using a trocar, organs in the chest cavity and abdomen are punctured and drained of gas and fluid, then replaced with a formaldehyde chemical mixture. So they drain all of your organs and your fluids and then they pump it all with a chemical mixture. They also do this for your blood, like your arteries and your veins. This is called arterial embalming. So they drain all of your blood and they pump you with at least 2 gallons of formaldehyde. And this mixture is different depending on kind of pre-existing conditions. If you had a very severe cancer or have diabetes, you might need a stronger solution of the formaldehyde. So they kind of just need to go person to person and situation to situation to really depend on what they're doing with this body. So it's a very interesting process and, a lot goes into it. Now that we've kind of discussed what the process is, I want to share with you what it really takes in order to become an embalmer. So, it's just like a typical career. You can't just walk in and say, hey, I want a job. You need to be qualified and have the right credentials. You need to go to school. You need to receive at least an associate's or a bachelor's degree in order to do this. And once you've received your degree, then you go into an apprenticeship and you work with a certified embalmer and you learn how to do it, and you need to do so many in order to do your apprenticeship. And so once that's done, then you can apply to get your license and get the proper credentials, and then you can do it. So it's not just going into a funeral home and applying, there's a whole process. According to the authors at learn.org, embalmers must have in-depth knowledge of body systems and organs, biology, chemistry, and possibly some general business principles, depending on whether they work independently or for a larger funeral service. So it is a profession, so you need to make sure you are taking the right steps in order to do this. Another thing you need to have in order to be an embalmer is obviously a strong stomach. You're dealing with bodily fluids and smells and a whole bunch of different things, so you need to make sure that you can handle being in such a interesting profession. You also need to be on call 24/7. You never know when someone is unfortunately going to pass away, so you need to make sure you are ready and available to help the decomposing process. So you need to be available whenever someone, death is unexpected, so you need to make sure you are always there for people. And another thing I didn't really realize that you need to have in order to be an embalmer is good communication skills. You're dealing with a very sensitive subject and you need to make sure that you're being respectful and sensitive to the family who are obviously mourning. So it's not just dealing with dead bodies, but you're also dealing with the families and the people. So a lot more goes into it than just, inserting formaldehyde into the bodies. It's a huge thing. And now that we've kind of talked about what it takes to be an embalmer or the requirements, I want to share with you something sort of relevant to today when dealing with dead bodies, when there's diseases or contagious things that you can get. So right now during COVID, if a body or a person has died of COVID, they need to be extra careful and take extra precautions, such as wearing full PPE gear and make sure their face is completely covered, and that, you know, there's not a chance of getting this disease. Make sure they're using antibacterial soap on their fingertips and their hands and things like that. So there's a lot, and they have to make sure they're extra precautious, which, you know, embalmers anyways need to be cautious of what they're doing and careful. They're constantly around formaldehyde, like I mentioned, which can cause cancer. And it's, you know, very serious. As stated by the American Cancer Society, several studies have found that embalmers and medical professionals that use formaldehyde have increased risks of leukemia, particularly myeloid leukemia. So when you're dealing with cancer-causing things or diseases, you need to make sure you are protecting yourself and protecting the people around you. So a lot goes into doing this type of job. So you need to make sure you're extra precautious, and, you know, you have to adapt to things like COVID and stuff like that. Now that we've discussed everything about embalming, you know, embalming isn't an easy or a typical profession, but it's definitely a needed one. Everyone, you know, unfortunately dies, and we need to figure out what we're going to do with our bodies. So you have to know what it takes to embalm a dead body. You need to know what the credentials are, like I've mentioned, and even figure out how to adapt to crises such as COVID-19 or other things like that. It is uncomfortable situation and stuff to talk about death, but, you know, the death process is normal. It's a part of life, and we need to talk about it. So I want to leave you with this quote by Haruki Murakami. Death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it. So would you choose to be embalmed? Thank you.